In this first look video, we're going to be checking out Weaponiser by Krotos. Intended as an all-in-one sound design solution for creating weapon sound effects, we'll take a look at some of the presets, how we can design our own weapon sounds from scratch, and also take a look at other uses for this instrument, as it's great for creating stacked drum hits and special effects sounds. So Krotos are the company that are also behind Dehumanizer and Reformer, and they specialise in tools or instruments for post-production. So Dehumanizer would take any voice and could turn it into a monster or animal sound. And with Weaponizer, they've recorded numerous different weapons, different mic angles, and presented it in this quite flexible and customizable GUI where you can add synth layers, shape the sound with various different samples in each one of these engines, mix them, and use this timing section to alter the timing and various other things that we'll take a little look at. So I created this little loop and added the MIDI sounds down here, the Weaponizer sounds. So it's a really cool instrument for creating weapon sounds. It's going to be great for people who work in game post-production. I also think it's quite flexible in the way you can start stacking up samples in here and create all sorts of different sound effects or stacked drum sounds. So we'll begin by checking out some of the presets on Weaponizer. And when you load up the instrument, it's automatically C4 will trigger the sample. So let's go and have a look at some of the presets, and as with other Krotos products, they're very well organized presets, so it's very easy to navigate around. So we have a real world section, and we have automatic, and we can browse right to left as well. Back into our load, let's have a look at some other ones. And then we've got the pistol section. Rifles, shotguns, so there's loads and loads of samples. Really nice sound quality throughout. And sci-fi, so let's have a look at the experimental section in the sci-fi category. And they're all velocity sensitivity, so you can get very nice dynamic response from the samples and the presets. We have a beat section, so various different drum sounds in here. It's demonstrating its versatility, and of course it's intended for weapon sound design and special effects. But it can create some really cool drum sounds as well. We have a bullet flyby section of presets, a few in here as well. Bullet impact. And these are quite nice. The gun Foley, so light reload preset. Really nice sounds to be using, and UI section as well, so some slightly different sounds in here. So it's available in two versions, the basic and fully loaded, and the fully loaded comes with over 2,000 assets, and these are effectively these samples over here. So let's create if we go to our factory presets and select clean start and try and make our own kind of original or unique weapon sound. So we have all these assets, and it has this really nice tagging system as a way of searching for these, because the full install is about 5 gig and there's a lot of samples, but you can very easily narrow down your search for what you're looking for. Say burst. Brings up all the bursts, and then we can navigate or narrow down the search further and select assault rifles and bursts, and then we get a smaller results list. Or we could look for some Foley sounds in mono, because it's taken various different weapon sounds but used different microphones to get different recordings. And so we can search and navigate like that, and then say if we find something we want to use, or just a single shot for starters, like something with a nice attack to it, literally just drag and drop it and into one of our engine sections. And then we could, each engine we have 4 sample slots. So what's really cool is we can actually load multiple samples into each one of these sample slots. So this one here, I've loaded that burst sound. I just drag and drop this next sound, drag and drop it in there, and rather than replacing it, what we do is we get 2 sounds in here now, and it will alternate playback between each one as you trigger the MIDI. And I could add another sound in there, drag and drop it. So it's great for variating playback, and then we could get rid of the ones we don't want. And once we've loaded one of those sounds, we've got some options for editing the sound, so we can change the speed, which will pitch it down or pitch it up. And you'll see around the instrument these little grey bars. If I click and drag this circle, this will add randomization values to this speed control. So it's really quite a nice way to add variation very easily to shots. Or you can use an envelope to control the speed. So you can see very quickly, although it's great for designing weapon sounds, you can actually just load your own samples into these slots. So it becomes a really powerful drum editor or sound effect editor at the same time. So in addition, we've got the level. And again, we have this randomization value. We can also turn this into an ADSR envelope. And we've got these 4 slots in the Onset engine. So the Onset is designed for the attack, the initial burst of the sound. We also have a synth layer, FM synth layer, so we can develop or design the sound a little bit further using this synth layer. We have pitch modulation, FM modulation, and ADSR envelope, so we can shape the sound further, which is really cool. Go to our amp and take the decay and sustain down, which is quite nice if we're creating more sci-fi like noises and we want to add a bit more of a synthesized layer with one of these samples. And so in addition to the Onset engine, we've got the body engine, which is intended for the main content of the sound. So we could start a new search and say look for a pistol sound, Something like that. Drag it in. And again, we can have multiple sounds within one of these slots, or have all 4 layers. And then the advantages of having them in the different banks here is that you've got the individual envelope controls and volume controls for each one. Go to single shot. And again, we've got this synth layer here on the body. Which can add just an extra layer of depth. We've got pitch modulation, FM modulation, and amp modulation again. And then we get into the Fump Engine. And this is intended for the base layer of the shot. So let's look for some different types of sound to load in. And you can see how much fun it is just creating these quite unique sounds. We also get a synth layer on here. We'll solo up this layer for now. And this synth is slightly different to the other synths, so it's just intended to create those kind of thump or kick-like sounds. So in its default state, it's just adding a bit of a low frequency bump to the sound, but you can change the duration here, or the bass frequency, the pitch envelope. So there you've got a nice little sort of synthesized kick drum sound, and then you can layer that with whatever else you want and solo this. And the level down for this slot. And then we got the tail engine. So we've actually got a tail tag over here. So this is for the end of the sound, the tail end of the sound. So you can load these in. And you can see this mixer section over here for balancing the different engines. And what's really cool about this tail section is you've got this impulse response, the IR unit. So you turn this on, and that's the reverb for the sound, but you can actually drag any sample in here to create your impulse response. And take that tail, drag it in, and then that becomes the tail for the reverb. But like I say, you can drag it any sample you want, so you could go and navigate. I've got some drum hits up here, so I could take one of these sounds. Something like that actually has a bit of tail on it and reverb. You can just drag that in, and then that becomes your impulse response, which is really nice. And all of those individual controls for each one of these banks. So in addition to all of those controls, you've also got this timing engine over here, which we can slide the scale to zoom in a little bit. And so we can just offset the sounds. And You know, you can just create slight timing differences between each one of those engines. Turn the reverb down a little bit. So it becomes a really powerful sound design tool. And over here to the right, we've got this burst mode. So this re-triggers the sound. So it's just a one shot at the moment. If I select burst mode, it just turns it into automatic. And then we've got the fire rate. So controls the speed. So really cool. And then we come to the mixer section. As we're looking, you can change the levels for each one of these layers, as well as a master section. You've got the reverb send for the onset body and thump. So how much of this, we've created our own impulse response using that clap sound, and then how much of that reverb is being applied to each one of the engines. And then we can start adding effects to each one of these engines. We've got EQ, compressor, limiter, saturator, ring mod, flanger, transient shaper, noise gate. So say for that initial, we can solo this layer, add a bit of saturation, change and pull the gain down a bit. And on our body layer, let's add, say, an EQ. Notch up some mids. And go back to our base layer. We could add the transient shaper to this to give it a bit more of a stronger attack. And then we've got a master layer as well. So you can start adding effects to each one of these individual engines, but you could also add them at the master stage, which could help sort of gel the sound together a little bit more. So I could add a limiter onto the master just to control the dynamics a little bit. You can see how easy it is to create quite usable sounds. Obviously, if you're looking at game post-production or film post-production, it's really cool, but let's go ahead quickly, just do another clean start, because I think it's actually got loads of scope for all different types of use, this instrument. So I could use it to create quite either unique drum sounds, or just as a way of stacking drum sounds in a way that you wouldn't do previously. So if we start to navigate back to our folder of drums and create a bit of a beefy kick drum sound, so load something like this in, is in our onset. So, and this selects the playback as well. So you could just take that very initial hit, but and then we could start adding we could take that as well, but edit the envelope of this. And again with this, so we're just taking the transient. And we could add one of these sounds or assets from Weaponiser. We go to single shot. Something like that. We could add that as well. Edit that envelope. We could go into our Fump section, add a synthesized layer to the drum. Tweak the duration. Or the bass frequency. Go to our master section, add a bit of saturation. Limiter. and say this is probably a little bit too loud. And you've got quite a usable kick drum very quickly. You could tweak around with this. Probably wouldn't want to for a kick drum sound. But something like that for stacked claps or hip hop style claps would be great to just edit the start points and tweak them around. So as you can see, it's a really versatile instrument. Obviously great for post-production stuff, but I think it could be used for electronic music and quite involved sound design as well. Be sure to check out Weaponiser by Krotos. It's available now, and there is a demo available that you can download for free and just check it out and see how it works for you. Alright, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.